evening. It is 6:35 p.m. on Monday, March 4th, 2024. I would like to call to order the Sheboygan Area Schools Board of Education special meeting. Mrs. Ballard?
Amber Hanson.
Here.
Marianne Ridings.
Here.
Julie Lahila. Matt Malarchuk.
Here.
Dennis Olson. Carmela Boyd.
Here.
Tim Tarja. Eric Hall.
If everyone would please stand and join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Due to scheduling times, I would like a motion to amend the agenda for this evening to move public comments from number 8 to just under the new hire motion as number 6.
I'll make that motion. Support.
Moved by Marianne, supported by Carmela. Any questions? Mrs. Ballard?
Carmela Boyd.
Yes.
Matt Malarchuk.
Yes.
Marianne Ridings.
Yes.
Amber Hanson.
Yes. All right, first on the agenda this evening, we have quite a few retirements. I am looking for a motion to accept with regrets the resignation for the purpose of retirement of Kevin Wells, middle school, high school choir, 26 years. Brent Richard, marketing education teacher, 28 years. Jenny Palmer, high school secretary for 17 years. And Shirley Merchant, elementary teacher, 39 years.
Would make the motion to accept those resignations as presented with regrets. Support.
Moved by Marianne, supported by Carmela. Before we vote, there's a lot of years on this paper here. These teachers combined, are any of them present? No? Shirley Merchant was my first grade teacher, and she was my daughter's kindergarten teacher. So while she deserves her retirement, from personal experience, I'm also very sad to see her go. Mrs. Ballard, we're ready to vote.
Matt Malarchuk.
Yes.
Carmela Boyd. Yes. Marianne Ridings.
Yes.
Amber Hanson.
Yes. So congratulations on your retirement, and we wish you all success. We also do have a new hire this evening. Okay, this is gonna sound really bad, but I see you in the school so much. I was like, doesn't she already work here? When I saw your name on here, I was like, is she moving to a different? Erica Gildner is going to be an elementary teacher at East Elementary, if I can get the motion to approve hiring her.
I would make the motion to approve hiring Erica Gildner as an elementary teacher at East Elementary. Support.
Moved by Marianne, supported by Carmela. Any questions? Discussion?
The same.
The same.
She already works here, doesn't she?
Now they're gonna pay you for being around, so that's great. Mrs. Ballard?
Marianne Ridings.
Yes.
Carmela Boyd.
Yes.
Matt Malarchuk.
Yes.
Amber Hanson.
Yes. Congratulations and welcome to the district.
Excited.
Yeah. Because we flew through our agenda at this point in the evening, I would like to open up the floor for public comment. If there's anybody that would like to address the board this evening, please step up to the podium or just stand and state your name and address for the minutes.
Good evening. My name's Mindy Jewell. I'm a resident of the district. My daughter is a junior this year. And for those of you who don't know my daughter, she's 17. She plans on going to college after she graduates. She's kind, compassionate, loyal, trustworthy. She has great friends. She has a summer job. She's volunteered with several community organizations for many years. She's a pretty good kid. She's never been in trouble at school. Teachers have always had great things to say about her. And yeah, she goes to Inverness. Mr. Mlinarchuk, I can't fathom why you wouldn't want your kids around her. She's a delight, really. She deals with ignorant statements like that all the time. It's cost her some friendships. It's caused some people's parents to not like her. But when it comes from a school board member, it really is unacceptable. Student first means all the students in this district. You have no idea why kids are attending Inverness. Some may have chosen that route because of bullying, being threatened on the main campus. Some may be struggling to keep up in class. Some may be star athletes who want the freedom of online classes to attend tournaments. Some may have found during COVID that online learning really worked for them. And of course, there's some who are court ordered to be there. There's as many reasons as there are students. Those students who are there for behavior issues, what causes a kid that age to be dealing with those kind of behaviors? Parental issues, abuse, neglect, substance abuse, homelessness. There's as many reasons as there are kids. We don't know. But what we do know is that at some point, kids exhibiting those behaviors were let down by adults in their lives. We also know that sports builds character. It forms friendships. It provides mentors. It gives a positive thing for kids to do in their spare time. It teaches teamwork and so many other life skills. How many kids from the main high school go on to play D1 or D2 sports in the last 10 years? I was told 12. I don't know about that for sure. But funny enough, most of the ones I could find seem to be bowlers. And after talking to several people over the last few weeks, it seems that that's one sport that may actually have trouble fielding a team without their Inverness students. Mr. Friday should have made his proposal in time for it to be discussed at a regular board meeting, and it should have been on the agenda in clear language so parents would know what was happening and given a chance to participate in that discussion. His lack of planning should not have created an emergency on your part. You allowing it to do so has now created an emergency to make choices for my family. There's a lot of talk about Inverness being credit recovery. That wasn't how it was sold to us. It was marketed as an alternative choice. My daughter chose Inverness because we were told she would be able to take autos and run track. This decision means she can't run track. I heard we could probably work something out, and I have to guess that she's probably a student that falls into that category, but you left it at that with no further discussion. There's no plan in place on how that might work or who would be eligible to do it. I know from previous experience that the main campus does not allow students, even academically advanced students, to take online classes because it just isn't in their budget. Not having a plan for this really puts not only my daughter, but the other students at Inverness who would like to play sports in a tough position. It's not 2 students like was mentioned the other night. I'm not even sure if that's correct for this season, but I know of 5 off the top of my head that were affected by this decision, and they aren't seniors. If coaches recruited at Inverness, they'd probably end up with a few more. At the main campus, my children, who are not athletes, were constantly asked if they were going to go out for a variety of sports. At Inverness, we have trouble finding out when tryouts or practices begin. In fact, the meeting for track came and went without my daughter knowing anything about it. Nobody seems to be trying to get the kids at Inverness to participate in sports. The MHSAA provides very clear guidelines for behavior and academic eligibility in sports that would deal with the situation that was used as an excuse to exclude this population of students. If those rules are followed, there shouldn't be issues for coaches. I'm also wondering if all the coaches were surveyed. Mr. Friday gave 5 responses in his letter. We have at least 19 coaches. What do the rest of them think? I don't know. I'm very disappointed in this decision, not in the decision itself, that's a board decision for you to make, but how it came about in a special meeting where people were lacking information and there was no input by those affected by it is very disappointing. Over the past few weeks, I talked with a few Inverness families about this decision. They were disappointed in the decision, and more than one person stated that it's done, nothing's gonna change, they're Inverness kids. It was so sad to hear people say that, but after what happened at this meeting, I understand why they may feel that way. I hope going forward, when a decision needs to be made with a deadline approaching, everybody takes a deep breath. Make sure you have all of the information and that you gain input from those who will be affected by your decisions. Thank you.
Thank you for coming this evening. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board? Anyone at all about anything? I would like to entertain a motion for a brief recess.
I would make the motion to recess
Until
until
6:55.
6:55 in preparation of the Zoom meeting.
Perfect. Student support.
Thank you.
Mrs. Ballard?
Matt Malarchuk,
Yes.
Marion Ridings,
Yes.
Carmella Boyd,
Yes.
Amber Hanson.
Yes. We will resume at 6:55. Okay. I am looking for a motion to return to open session.
I'll make that motion.
I just do it?
Yeah, at this time.
So it is 7:59? Yeah, 7:56, and I would like to call us back into open session. Let's resume this meeting.
Sorry, Amber.
It's okay. It's only recorded, it's fine. Got 3 board members missing, everybody's gonna watch it.
Somebody was trying to join. He was in the waiting room. I don't know what happened to him. It's really quiet in here.
It is.
We need our East teacher that came and did the big Q presentation the other day. Come back for a moment. Right.
Right? Several of you are probably really good at this.
Not
wouldn't
me.
be me.
Okay. Maybe I'm wrong.
Take them to the finger on the nose though, so it doesn't
I had a presentation to our secretary the other day, and I was for the first time doing the prevention, I go over there and I called Jordan, and I'm like, I need your help, like, are you here?
Yeah.
It did.
I haven't really, I mean, the meeting started, he's not joined. There's nothing I can do for him to, I just sent him an email.
we can amend the agenda and start talking about scope.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
And then we'll go from there.
All right.
See if I can get it.
I would like a motion to amend the agenda to move the project scope discussion to before the Troon Zoom meeting.
Make that motion.
Deb?
Support.
Any questions? Mrs. Ballard?
Carmella Boyd,
Yes.
Matt Mulnarchuk,
Yes.
Mary Ann Ridings,
Yes.
Amber Hanson,
Yes. And then we'll just, put a pin in it. So I'd like to keep making some of these small forward steps, at each meeting. This meeting, I would like the board to try its best. I know that not everybody's here, but to approve a project scope for our pre-qualification meeting so that we can at least get that to one or both parties so that we can start moving forward there. At our last meeting, through an informal, poll of the board, it seemed that a majority of us were in favor of moving forward with some or all of this list that Steve gave us, and then turning around and trying to find a committee to discuss how to move forward at a later date. I don't know if everybody had a chance to look at this list, if we like it as it is, if there are things that we would like to take off or replace or add. Now would be the time to talk about that.
I just had a couple questions regarding and I don't know if Steve knows this or not, but Steve, do you know like your dollar amount here, those were fees from SiteLogic, correct? Like their dollar amounts for these projects, like your non-negotiable list? You
Yes.
just use their numbers?
I use the numbers.
Do you know if their numbers are inclusive of their fee or not? I don't know. Maybe.
No, they are below you compared to,
Well, what I mean is, do they have like that so if they say something's like $500,000, is that including their 18% fee in that, or do we pay $500,000 then plus 18% of that?
I believe it's their 18%. There's also a lot of things in here that we won't need, their fees won't be added to.
Yeah, I was just trying to figure out, so if 15% is like inclusive of their fee or not, because then you'd obviously have more or less room to do some additional things if it was, versus if we have to allow for.
But we'll have to pay that fee to somebody. Maybe not at that percentage, but we'll have to pay
Yeah,
a fee to
for
somebody,
some
right?
projects we would, but I just wanted to know if the dollar amount estimate was including those fees or not, because you're talking 15 to 18% of them, that's another couple $1 million that would, if it didn't include them, then would not be available, or if it is including them, then we have potentially some more items we could include on there that are needed. That was kind of my first question, as far as, adding, and I know Steve's buses aren't on here, which is about another $1 million as well, I believe, right, Steve?
Yeah.
So you have to add that into it as well, but, I mean, it seems based on the numbers and that we've gotten from the bond folks, that would still be some room in there to do, a few other projects.
I got the
whatnot.
attorney on here, you wanna
Yeah.
ask the attorney the same question, he might be able to do that for us. Hi, Kurt, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yep. Let me see if I can get some video too. Matt just asked a good question, and I know you've been talking with the attorneys from SiteLogic. He wanted to know, as in regards to what SiteLogic's percentage is, what is it applied to in regards to the scope? That's just the work that's needed that they would have hands in, correct? So if it's an architect or if it's or construction management fee,
Right.
that would be some of those charges, correct?
Yeah, correct. It's only,
But,
well, so we've got a couple of things. I actually helped him that question specifically, and he said it's only with respect to the construction proceeds. oversee, then that would also be out. But as far as like buses and those things, they would not be subject to the fee.
So that wasn't really my question. So my question would be, I don't know, can you hear me okay?
I'll transfer it if you. what do you
So
think?
like when they give us an estimate on pick whatever project you want out of here, and it's $200,000.
Right.
Is that inclusive of their management fee, or do we pay the 200 plus 18%?
Did you hear that, Kurt? So we had some estimates for individual projects. Say, for example, one individual project is $200,000. Does the $200,000 include the 8.75, or is that on top of the $200,000 for that estimated project?
It's probably on top of. I mean, it really just depends on how they've described it to you, but it's generally on top of.
Okay.
Do we have the estimate? Was it included in their agreement, or is that a separate document?
It's a separate document. I mean, they just provided dollar amounts for estimates for various projects, and I mean, probably it's a question to ask them, but just.
I would say I'm virtually certain that that would not include their fee. That's generally how it's identified. It's just the hard construction cost, and then they would take their fee on top.
Okay.
And they're in the hallway too. Do we want to call them in, or do you want to talk to the attorney first?
I don't mean call them, talk to them first.
Yeah, well, I apologize, but,
Are you listening in over there?
well, we just heard a fee, and our fee is inclusive in all of those prices. It is
Okay.
not on top of those prices.
Okay.
Our fee is all in, all of those estimates have that included.
You guys want to come in and have a seat? You're listening out there anyways.
Well.
He's dropping.
We just heard a fee conversation.
Right, yeah. Okay, so Kirk, we got some questions for you. I know we don't have a lot of time here scheduled to meet with you, but if you could give the board some updates. I know that at one of our last meetings, I was directed to contact you, send the PSA agreement to you. You've been working with SiteLogic's attorney. You guys have been working through the contractual language. Now, I know when I first sent it to you, you weren't, you were a little pessimistic when you first looked at it. There was a lot of questions and concerns that you had. But within a few days' time, we met again and you felt a little bit more optimistic about us being able to come to an agreement. Can you share that thought process with our school board?
Yeah, sure. So the originally proposed agreement was a SiteLogic based form of agreement. I've seen that in the past for other school districts, and what we had done for other school districts is to switch to sort of more of an industry standard form contract based on an AIA document, American Institute of Architects. So, we had for another district a few months ago largely negotiated a contract based on what's called a B132 agreement. That's your owner architect agreement. A C132 agreement, which is a construction manager contract, and then an A232, which is your general conditions. So those three separate documents. And there are thousands of changes that were negotiated previously. And I had discussed with SiteLogic's counsel, starting from that document, and they were generally amenable to doing that. So the agreement is largely in good shape. From that respect, you may want to take a closer look at it for just very project specific, as far as dates and, the percentage fees and those things are a little different, but, the vast majority of the meat of that document is in pretty good shape.
Okay, good, thank you. And Pete's gonna, I think one of the things that we talked about that the board has interest in learning more about is 18.75%. From the outside looking in, to someone who's a novice at this type of work, 18.75% seems high, and I think it seemed a little high to you as well. But when you talk about they're combining architectural fees, which sometimes can be 7 to 9%, and then once you hire the architect, you have to hire a construction manager and other services, that ultimately, when you start adding percentages up, because their percentage is all inclusive, it does appear to be large. But when you do any construction project and you, at the end of the project, you add all the percentages up, it's not uncommon to have a total of 18 to 20% for all fees when you start paying everybody their service fees, right?
Yeah, so I would say it really depends on the type of project that you have, and what I mean is there's different project delivery methods. You can have a project delivery method that is just an architect and not a construction manager. And your architectural fees are gonna be in that 7% range about. If you have a construction manager, there's really two primary types of construction managers. The one that we see the most is what's called a CM advisor. Your CM advisor fees are gonna be in about 8%, 9% of the cost of the work. So, yeah, if you were to combine those two, then you're looking at 15, 16%, something along those lines for a typical, project. So, yeah, if you're combining it, it's closer.
And I know I was talking to Pete today. Pete, you were gonna go talk to leadership about potentially reducing the 18.75. Did you get a response from them?
We had some conversation with them, yes.
Okay.
Yes. I think one of the biggest things too, just to put out there is that, one of the things that I think, when Kirk's referring to architectural fees and CM fees, those are base fees. Those don't include all services and all reimbursables. That additionally, most A&E firms and CM firms are also going to be asking the district to reimburse the cost of any additional services or expenses that they have throughout the project, which is going to be reimbursed during or at the end of the project. And with us, because our fees are all in, we are not asking for any reimbursement. We will not bill for any additional services. So our take is, in essence, we will most likely save the district money in a traditional process over what they would pay having a separate A&E CM firm and paying all those services and reimbursables that you would eventually be billed for.
And the other question that we had, Pete, that we talked about this morning, and I've shared with Kirk, is I think the other hurdle that we've tried to get over in regards to the school board and community understanding is if we go to a referendum in August and we ask for $18 million to do the laundry list of things, the scope that we have yet to work on.
Right.
Many of those things are not going to require SiteLogic's help.
Yep.
So therefore, the 18.75% will not apply to when Steve needs to buy buses.
Nope.
Okay, so how do we, within the agreement, Kirk, maybe you can add to this as well. So if we're going, let's say, we all know, we've talked about how much we can generate in revenue if we do a tax neutral bond referendum in August, and it's somewhere to the tune of $22 million. That means we can go back to the taxpayer and ask them for no tax increase, just to extend the debt that we already have. That would generate about $22 in new money. That would allow us to do some of the projects that Steve is doing right now, like the bleacher project and the science classrooms renovation project. And we're all looking at doing PE and athletic locker rooms project this summer. There's three huge projects right there that is really going to tap into our Series 3, the last series of our bond money is coming to an end. So if we don't refund that fund, probably next summer it'll be exhausted, and it takes some time to get that money and get the community to support renewing those funds, correct?
Right.
So what are your thoughts on that? So let's say, let me give you an example. Let's say that the board decides maybe they don't want to go for the entire 22 million. Maybe they want to go for 18 million. We take a look at Steve's list, and the things that we're going to need help with you on, it's going to be somewhere about 10 or 12 million, right? So that 18.75 would be applied to that 10 or 12 million, not to the entire 18 million. Where I'm confused a little bit, maybe you and Kirk can help me, is how do we, what's the number? So let's say, I know Steve has a list. Steve, you presented your list a couple times. I think the things that you feel need to be fixed, and if you add all those things up, a lot of the stuff that they've suggested, you've went through, I think last time we talked, maybe 15 million, and that's just maintenance and things to taking care of things for the next 3 to 5 years. Is that accurate, or is that, I think you said 15 to maybe 16 or 17, or?
It was 14.7 for the non-negotiable, but also, if you look at my list, I crossed out a bunch of stuff to make room for the safe and secure entry for Eastside and some other additions there.
Okay.
So my estimate was 18 million for everything, to include the.
Okay, so if let's say just for scenario purposes, we did go to 18 million. How much of that 18 million would we need SiteLogic's help on? Do you have an idea?
Well, for the school buses, there's 975,000 that we can subtract, and also all the asbestos. I have an environmental engineer firm that the school has kind of a contract with. It's been doing it for 20-some years. So that's who would be would be the engineer in that project. We wouldn't want, Site Logic shouldn't be involved in that. It
Right,
should be the
right.
environmental engineer and myself,
Right,
and they'll be the, so.
okay.
So for their fee and so their fees wouldn't, so Site Logic wouldn't have to do that. That's close to $1 million of work.
So Steve's comprehensive list is 18 million. If we go to bond referendum in August for 18 million, maybe we might only need 10 or 12 million where we need Site Logic's help on that. Therefore, 10 or 12 million, 18.75% would be applied to that 10 or 12 million. How do we determine if it's 10 or 12 million?
Well, when the board determines the scope of the projects that they would like us to help with, that all will be added and amended into the professional services agreement, and you will only pay a fee on those services that you are asking us to actually follow through and help the district with. Anything that the district is going to do without the need for an architect or engineer or construction management, that's something you'll do on your own.
And is that number in the agreement? I think you said earlier it was 15 million, but it could be 10, it could be 12.
Yeah, right now there was just a placeholder in that agreement, basically.
Right,
To say, hey, there's going to be a fee on a certain dollar amount.
right.
And typically the attorneys want us to have some type of dollar amount in there instead of just saying there's nothing here.
Right, and I
So-
think the last dollar amount you put in there was 15
I
million,
think 15
correct?
was the one we had in the last draft. yeah.
And now just talking with you in the hallway, you said just to keep this ball rolling down the hill, if we need to reduce that, just to continue the conversation to 10 or 12 million
Right.
of the 18 million that Steve needs, then we can continue to partner.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
And we also know that we're under a time crunch, right?
Yeah.
I've already talked with the attorney today. We are not gonna make the March, what is it?
March 15th, 14th.
March 15th
yeah.
PQ meeting.
Right.
So our attorneys are working on already extending that date to Friday, April 5th, I think it is.
Yep.
Which buys us a couple more weeks. Do you see any problem with, because that's what we're counting on with you, is
Yep.
helping us complete that paperwork
Yes,
that needs to go to the state so that we can get a lower interest rate on the money that we're borrowing.
absolutely. And all we would need to do, once the district determined to move forward with us, is set up a time to workshop and say, here is the scope we want your help with, so that and we would need the entire scope, because in the PQ application, we're going to have all the scope, even the things that you want to do on your own.
Right.
So we can help you get through that PQ process, but then only the items that you want our help with are going to be part of the professional services agreement.
And I also know, I don't know if, I think you guys stated it, maybe not, I just want to confirm, that you guys were hoping to get an agreement approved tonight in order to continue our partnership, but we only have 4 board members tonight.
Right.
Our attorneys, Kirk and your attorney, Dan, are still working on some contract language.
Yes.
It doesn't look like we have a 100% agreed upon contract tonight. So if we kick this can down the road to next week to another special board meeting or two, but we do need to keep cognizant of that April 5th PQ meeting.
Yeah, but keep in mind, even with an April 5th PQ meeting, we're going to need to submit the PQ application both to Troon and to RJ at PFM for all, because we've got to do draw schedules and everything, and he's got to update all his financial information. It would be nice to have the PQ app done a week before that PQ meeting,
Right.
so that we can get it to everybody and they can look at it, get the bond language in and everything. And so then we can move forward. So that gets you now that last week of March, basically.
Right.
And so there's only really about 3-week window right there. And it takes some time to complete that PQ application, because
Right.
when we determine scope, we've got to do it, by series, by building, by project. So we've got to break all that out for you as well.
Right.
And that's what we would need to work with you to do that.
So we're probably not, as I mentioned, we're not going to have a signed agreement approved by the board tonight. What do you need from us to continue working towards that PQ meeting? Now, before you start on that one, I also know that you and I have talked to RJ, who's our
Yep.
kind of bond specialist,
He's your financial advisor.
financial advisor. He's recommended to us, or he supplied to us today. If by chance, because we've talked about going non-qualified,
Right.
and the reason we stayed away from non-qualified, maybe Kirk, you want to chime in on this as well when you get a chance. The problem with going with non-qualified is that you're going to pay more interest. We have an A- bond rating, but that's still not as good as the state. You
Right.
go for a pre-qualified state because theirs is better and our interest rate is lower, therefore more money goes to projects instead of going to interest on loans that we're going to pay back, correct? So what is the difference from?
Yeah,
from-
and RJ supplied you with a copy
Yes.
of that today.
And I forwarded it to the board, did you guys get that?
Yes,
The RJ stuff?
yeah.
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, A quick summary of what I saw in that was that if the district was to go non-qualified, you have a little bit less of a threshold that you can ask for. It was about a $300,000 less that you could actually
Right.
go out and get from a tax neutral perspective. And then it had a very similar effect on the interest that would accumulate over the life of the bond as well. So as you said, yes, it would be slightly more interest. I think it was like 0.15% or something like that RJ had in that document. So it was a little more.
Okay, so it would be beneficial to get this pre-qualified, it would save the tax.
It definitely is a benefit, yes.
More money would go to projects, less money would go to interest.
Absolutely.
Kirk, what do you think about all this?
Yeah, I mean, you hit it. That's exactly it. I mean, we've got a bit more of a time crunch if we're going to go qualified. You'll pay a little more interest if you go non-qualified, but less of a time crunch.
I have a question for Kurt.
Yep. Yeah.
No, you go first.
What do we got?
If we have a non-qualified bond, do we have to pay the prevailing wage?
If we have a non-qualified bond, do we have to pay prevailing wage?
No.
If we have a
It will depend-
qualified
I
bond?
mean, it ultimately depends on what other funding sources are, but if it's only, bond funds, then no, because that's what, when it's qualified, that's what pushes you into a state project where you have to pay prevailing wage. So that's a good point. You could have some savings there.
Okay, great. Mary Ann?
In regards to the
That would
contract,
be a
could
good
you
thing.
walk us through some, other than switching formats of the type of contract from theirs to your preferred method? What were some of the major differences that the board should be aware of in the two contracts? What items do you have still remaining that you're looking to negotiate through? And what time frame do you think is going to be the remainder before those are agreed upon?
So the differences are, there's more detail in the AIA-based document, and I think that the provisions are, from a procedural standpoint and in other respects from a financial standpoint, are better. Like we had talked about the percentage, the cost of the work, there's a specific provision talking about what the cost of the work means for purposes of identifying that 18.75%. Big picture, they're similar. Big picture, they talk about the same, concepts of bidding, design, construction administration, post-construction, and so forth. So they're similar, but I think that the AIA-based document is better for the school district, and that's why we negotiated it for another school district as well. The provisions that would need to be considered are the district and project-specific terms of the agreement. And you're going to be talking about schedules, which we may not know, but schedules, scope of basic services, scope of additional services, and just the typical things that you would do to go through to kind of plug in the business terms. With that said, it's a 120 plus pages, small print, but the vast majority of it is in pretty good shape, and I think we could turn it around within a couple of days, and maybe sooner. It's really just a matter of getting in touch with with the right folks and me getting in touch with Dan, their SiteLogic's attorney, to hammer it out. We're not far away. If the decision is to go with SiteLogic, I think we could have something done in pretty short order.
And you said, Kirk, that you had worked with, recently you had worked with Dan, the attorney from SiteLogic, in a similar project. So a lot of the same similar conversations came up. Was there anything glaring that was different from this particular contract compared to the other contract that you negotiated for another school district?
Nothing glaring. The fee was higher, but the percentage it fluctuates based on projects. Some projects are more difficult than others. Percentage tends to be a little higher on smaller projects. So but that was a difference. Otherwise, it was very similar. And in fact, when I raised the issue with Dan, he's the one who proposed back to me the largely negotiated document from another district, and it was pretty clear he just kind of swapped out some of those other business terms. So there aren't many differences at all. We would need to add some things depending on how we fund this. Of course, prevailing wage is an issue now as of February 13, so depending on how we go, we might need to make some changes there. There's some tweaked language with the Elliott Larson Civil Rights Act, but there's a few little things that we'll have to change, but that wouldn't take much time at all.
All right, and we don't have a lot of time left with you since Zoom meetings now are capped at 40 minutes. So we got about, I think, 10 more minutes before you're gonna get kicked out. Does anybody have any other questions for Kirk while we got him on the Zoom here? How about you guys, Pete, Brad, is there anything you think we need to share? What about you before we let you go? Any last
Haven't seen it.
comments?
It's hard to know what questions we have when we don't have a document to look at. We don't know what changes have been made, what it looks like, or what it says. You know, so our options this evening are to approve something that we haven't seen,
Right.
or,
Well, yeah, I think you and I agreed approval's off the
yeah,
table
I'd rather
today.
not approve
But
something
it's
that we
either,
haven't
it's,
looked at.
I guess our choices then become table this and continue to work towards an agreement, or take a vote and essentially vote no. Either no or table it.
I predict that board members will absolutely have questions once we can view a document. But we
Now,
haven't,
what
we
do you-
haven't seen it at all, so.
Yeah, Kirk, now this document that you've been working with Dan on, is there an amended document that you have lined out that we can send to board members so that they can see some of the changes that have already been incorporated in
Oh,
your
yeah,
discussion?
absolutely. Yeah, I do have that. I think I could send something, you know, that doesn't have the business terms in it, so you can just see the legal
Yeah.
changes that were made. If you wanted to have a discussion, we could have a discussion, plug in, the business terms that we can. I can talk with Dan about plugging in those business terms, and I think that could happen tomorrow. And I could
Yeah.
circulate that as well. But
Yeah,
certainly I can provide something.
I think that would be a good start if good continuance. If the board decides to continue to, and SiteLogic agrees to continue our partnership, if we could get a hold of that document tomorrow so we can send it to the board for them to take a look at, that'd be great. I'll email you when the board meeting's over and let you know which way to proceed.
Okay. Sure.
All right, any other questions for Kirk?
I got a question.
Jesus. Okay, hold on, we got one from the
So-
peanut gallery.
We developed the scope, and say there's an item or two on the scope that do we have to complete everything on the scope that's on the bond, or?
So you're talking about whatever the scope is presented to the state,
The state,
do we
yeah.
have to finish regardless if
Every
we run
single
out of
thing has to
money
be
or
complete,
not? Or-
yes.
Yeah, if we have a really large scope and we, right now, I mean, I think a lot of school districts found themselves in this particular predicament. Pickford in particular went to bond to build 12 classrooms, but due to COVID and inflation, actually ran out of money. So what happens when you get a bond qualified, but your scope is bigger than ultimately what you can pay for?
Yeah, like you said, it was an issue that a lot of districts have dealt with supply chain issues and, contractor costs going up. The scope is a concern because you're limited to that scope, but you're not obligated to construct everything within that scope. Now, if you're making promises, to your electorate and you don't complete it, then you could have some political issues, right? But as from a legal standpoint, there's no obligation to complete everything in there.
Great, thank you. Any other questions, Steve?
That's it,
You
thank you.
sure? Jim, do you have a question?
No, Steve actually asked my question.
You look like you have a question, that's why I'm asking. All right, Kirk, anything else before we let Kirk go? And then I think Pete and Brad had some things they wanted to share with us too, but I think thank you for zooming in tonight. I appreciate you taking time out of your evening, and I'll be in touch with you after the meeting.
Sounds good.
All right, thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
So we're actually in the middle of the project scope discussion because we amended the agenda. I'd like to continue in that direction until we finish that agenda item. Yeah?
So, Steve, I just would like a better clarification, because I greatly appreciate the list that you presented, and that it was the 14.7 million. But then you did have some items scratched out on it to allow for, I'm sorry, can you tell me what to allow for that was going to then take up that gap, the safe and secure?
More
entry rate?
renovations at Eastside.
Okay, so,
Is that this list? Are these
There's
the
an email
renovations
and I
that
had
will
an
replace
attachment.
these ones?
Yeah, and I crossed out a few items, when I crossed them out, I should have put the price decrease on it, but I
That's
forgot.
okay. We won't hold it against you this time.
Okay.
But these items replace the crossed out ones on this list.
Yes,
So this list plus the list in the email, what is that total that you?
it was approximately 18 million. And I forgot to add the buses.
So it's 19 with the buses, or 18 with the buses?
It's gonna be 19 the buses, but their Site Logic really, they wanted to make sure that we had the money and they really bloated their estimates.
No, I understand, I mean, I'd rather estimate a little high than be low and not be able to complete something.
So I can add it to the list accurately for if we do have a motion. What is your buses, what does that look like? How many
It
is
was
it?
975,000.
For the item, the
For
agenda
up to
item?
2 buses a year.
2 buses a year.
For how many years?
It was 2 buses. I sent out a, let's see if I have that. There's one of the years where we only get 1 bus, there's another year we get 0 buses.
Okay.
It was a 10-year plan.
10-year plan. Okay, so we have this list in front of us. I don't know if we have specific projects that we need to ask questions on, or we're considering, or if there's any board member that is considering erasing a project or an item line, or if they have something needs to be added, or questions about projects.
Do you have a rough idea that 19 million, how much of that, I know we said buses would be pulled out and the asbestos would be pulled out. So between you and Pete and Brad, do you have an idea like how much would be without Site Logic?
Actually, I sent an email out to the projects, we try to find it real quick.
Yeah, like, it was like boilers and.
Yeah, the boilers, the fire alarm
Asbestos.
upgrades, I could probably just look at it too.
Yeah, I remember.
And one of the things we would recommend, and Steve and Chris have worked closely together already on this, is Steve and Chris could connect virtually and, with Steve's information, Chris could get into the workbook and get a actual amount for, for that as well.
I guess what I was looking for, the reason that I was asking, which I greatly appreciate that, is that if we're at 19 million, I was looking for the amount that would be Site Logic to calculate the 18.75% to then add that fee onto the 19 million to see what our total would be and if we're still under the 22 million or not.
Well, I think
That's what I.
Pete said.
Remember, our fee is all, those prices already include our fee.
Yeah, so
It's all in it. We are not traditional, like Kurt said, where we add it on later. No, that, we want you to know the cost up front.
So that's why your costs were a lot, really, okay, that's.
Because they're 18.75, yes, that's already in the estimates of that work.
I
And our
apologize,
scope is
you
gonna
did
have
just
to-
say
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
It was
No.
more than 5 minutes.
That's
ago, so I
okay.
get a little
Yeah,
crazy.
so it's 18,975 would be the total cost.
And then our scope has to include all those projects anyway, so.
And please know, even, if the district decides to move forward with Site Logic, we can continue to finalize the scope and the costs and, to get to that point where, hey, we know everything. I mean, because it isn't typical for us that we know the actual amount of those projects before we agree to move forward. That's why we have that ability to amend that schedule at any time based on the projects that you want to complete. And then obviously our fee is only on those projects that you want us to help you with.
So that's 18,975, and then we could subtract the fire alarms, each building upgrades, asbestos, their fees are already added to it. So
Yes,
it's something
yeah.
that we could,
Carmela, do you have questions about any of these projects on these lists?
So I guess just when you look at like the PFM information that they sent, and I mean, looking at Steve's list here, like okay, so you can say we're basically almost at around $19 million. Is that the school would have the ability to get maybe like a couple $1 million more would be about the maximum, I think, under their doing like a,
It
what
was
is it,
22, right?
22 years. I guess I would just say if there's an ability to get, I mean, we're kind of past the shorter one, which would have raised to like a little less than 18 million. To get a couple $1 million more, I'm sure we could do some stuff at some of the buildings that maybe would, I mean, while all these items are great, might be a little bit more visually impacting for kids to see, you know, whether it be like some updates to libraries or whatever. I mean, I don't know what else, I'm sure these people out here can.
Can't you word it like our last bond, where it was pretty vague at the end, where it said for building district-wide improvements, indoor and outdoor, just add that onto it, so that like, if we decide, if something happens to the softball field or baseball field, we're looking at doing a renovation to, we can use some bond money for that. It's just kind of worded vaguely.
I think you can do that, but I think that can also create a negative public perception where they say, oh, the school just wants to take the money and do whatever they want with it when that's in there.
Isn't that how the current one's worded? That's why we were able to do that.
Yeah, the current-
It is how the last bond was worded.
Yeah.
The current bond was worded that way because it was broken into 3 series. The third series wasn't intended to be used until, what, 7, 8 years later after it was actually passed in 2015. So the problem in 2015, when people were sitting at the table like we are right now, they had no idea what would needed to be fixed in 2024. So that Series 3, which is the last bit of accessing over $10 million over the course of 2015 to 2024, the last series was $1.5 million, and it was worded much more vaguely than Series 1, even Series 2. So as you extend out, you want to intentionally make it a little bit more wiggle room for things that right now, who knows what's going to be, needs to be fixed in 10 years.
Just, I would just say, be really careful though, because the bond language that the attorney drafts, that is on the ballot, and then the PQ application are 2 separate things, right? The bond language is pretty vague in terms of, it allows you some broad authority to fix and, and do a lot of things. But the PQ app, as Kurt alluded to, is gonna have specific scope in there. And if you put that scope on there, if you run out of money, you certainly don't have to do it all.
Yeah.
But you are really limited to the scope on your PQ application.
So the more the better for your peak. I mean, even if you run out of money,
Yeah.
you want to have something on there
And they're gonna
just in case you have money.
Right, and they're gonna require us, when we help you with the PQ process, the amount of money that the district is asking for in the bond, every penny has to be accounted for in the PQ application. We can't just leave an amount out there and say, we're gonna figure out what to do with this 5 years down the road.
Right.
We can put $975,000 for buses. You can put the amount for the asbestos abatement.
So pretty much anything that we possibly can think of, even though we may run out of money and not get, should be on the PQ application. Right.
Yeah,
I
would
you
recommend
can't make
the
something
PQ
up
application.
afterwards.
Yeah, being as accurate as possible.
Right.
She was asking how much the wing was, it was right around 15 million, it was just under 15.
That was like the safe, secure entrance and the 5 additional classrooms.
The safe, secure entrance, but plus not the 5 additional classrooms.
Oh, okay.
Just the safe, secure entrance plus the resource rooms.
I thought that was in the 4 to 5 million range.
That was Steve's.
I think-
Yeah.
Is that what you're doing, or are you doing just the safe, secure entrance minus the resource rooms?
So the first proposed wing was around 14, 15 million.
Yeah.
I think you were doing the resource rooms, weren't you, Steve?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
actually
Is that
going to
included in this?
renovate
And the stage and the restrooms
Yeah.
and things?
the
Yeah.
stage, the existing office space, to be made into
Right.
where Deanna decides, if there were more classrooms, et cetera, but
Yeah.
lower stage, renovate existing office space to be made into classrooms or other space, new safe and secure entry.
The drawing that they presented had the safe, secure entryway, but attached to it were probably 3 additional rooms that were gonna be utilized, well, I mean, for whatever he's decided to utilize them for, but they were presented as like space for occupational or speech therapy or whatever to work out of. Is that included in this?
Yes, that's safe, secure for what was that, 4 million or 5 million?
Okay.
Yes,
Something like that.
yes,
Yep.
yes.
I would would just think we would wanna try to, if we have the opportunity to get a few more $1 million, that again, there's gotta be some sort of work, beneficial work that could be done for that.
Yeah, remember, your 25 years will be the length of time that RJ would say you can extend your current debt levy. And I think the one he shared today was 22, right?
So we can come back and ask for that money
Yeah.
again.
So if you go a little bit further out, you could get a little bit more money. Correct.
Potentially, yes. And you could add another series if you
But
wanted
the
to
longer
as
you
well.
wait, the less.
What's the deadline for this next PQ meeting?
If April 5th is the date, like I said, then I would say 1 week prior to April 5th is when we're gonna need to submit everything, which is gonna be around March, what, 28, 29?
The last week of March.
Yeah,
So we need to do this by next week.
Well, keep in mind that there's
Yes.
spring break and everything's
So we
gonna be
should
gone.
probably just do this.
because we're gonna want a week to
Decide.
prepare the app too. So I'm saying by like the 22nd of March, we wanna have all your information that's needed in that app, so we have a week to get it done, then we can submit it to Treasury on time.
My thing is that if we're trying to think of $2 more million worth of projects, we're just gonna have to keep coming back.
I mean, but you could just put something very simple, like could you say renovate the libraries at the schools?
Well, I mean, the assessment has a lot of potential projects in it. And you could simply
Yeah.
look at that.
Some of the scenarios that you generated for us were 22,
Colorful sheet
24
in
Oh,
million.
too.
yeah.
But I said I
There's-
didn't mean.
There is a lot of information in there. We're more than happy to come
Yeah,
back
that's
and go
math.
through with you.
We can put allowances in as well, like a furniture allowance and things like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
also the tennis court, I know that needs to be done, I didn't have it on my list. And I mean, that's an eyesore, I wasn't sure what we were gonna do with that, are we gonna bulldoze it over, are we gonna renovate it?
What are we doing about the track?
That's
We got 3 to 5 years to replace the
I believe the
track.
track was in there, wasn't it?
The track's in there, yeah.
Yeah,
the
track-
Track was
track's
non-negotiable, yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know.
go for the track.
Yeah, but the, I'm sorry, the track, the tennis courts, I'm sorry, was a,
We have some ideas for the tennis courts, but the tennis courts definitely need to be addressed. I don't know if they're not, if they should be in there.
I don't have them on my list, but
Yeah,
I
I
wasn't sure
mean-
what we were gonna do with
I
it.
mean, like Pete said, probably the more the better, but the tennis courts are, Ben and Jim, you guys get to look at them every day. What do you think of the tennis courts? They need to be renovated, right?
Renovated, preferably not multiple stuff.
Yeah.
Well, because they were thinking about parking lots.
I thought we were gonna consider utilizing that space in the event that we do eventually go to one campus as.
Yeah, that's why I didn't put it under, because I thought that was.
It could be a
Do you have a
possibility,
tier
a
2
parking
list?
lot or.
Second?
Do you have like a tier 2 list, like, oh, hey, these are my critical needs and these are my next
I don't know if you have it, but the
level
ones marked as 3,
things?
scenarios 3 were the ones that I had.
Okay,
Then we
let's
don't
look
have
at
to
that
do
one,
this.
scenario 3.
I don't know if you guys have it, most recent one that.
Yeah. One thing I mean, and we may want to clarify and have true clarification, when Kirk said about the statement about prevailing wage and a non-qualified bond, if he will verify that for the district, that's a big potential difference.
10%.
And I would tell you, if you can do a non-qualified bond and not be held to prevailing wage, it probably is going to be more affordable than doing qualified with prevailing wage. And that's, we just don't, we're not legal, we don't make that, but if, I would get a clarification because that would allow you a lot more time and a lot more flexibility on your scope if you're not submitting a PQ app to Treasury.
No, and no
You know.
PQ app, and you have to approve it. Second week of May, you gotta call for an election.
Yeah.
So we've got all that time.
That's a big deal.
We're going with another district right now, they're doing non-qualified, and for that reason, they wanted more time to go through their scope.
Yeah.
They don't wanna do it, so they're going non-qualified, they wanna have it done by mid-April.
Yeah.
We've got some time with
And
them.
they want to go to vote in August?
Yep,
In August.
they're
yeah.
going in August. So, yep. More food for thought, as if you didn't need it, have enough.
I'm just tired of it.
It's the last
Making a
digest.
decision about anything and always sitting here.
So we talked before about qualified and not qualified, and that with that language on the ballot, what community perception of that might be, so I think we have to keep that in mind.
And it won't appear on the ballot.
What's that?
I don't believe it'll appear on the
So that
ballot.
wording would not be.
I don't believe, but you could ask Kirk again.
Yeah.
He could
Okay.
tell you.
So we should check on that.
All right, I'm just gonna throw this out there, that I could ask for a motion to table the project scope for the pre-qualification meeting.
us like what your, I've looked at it electronically, but, you know, what your next
Next level,
tier of
yeah.
things would be.
Well, I can tell you, the middle school has the original carpet throughout the entire building. I think there's only been like the offices and a computer room's been replaced. So my goal was just to knock that out with general funds, or sorry, my maintenance funds and sinking funds throughout. Like I've been doing in the high school, been knocking out like two to four rooms a year. But like I said, that's original carpet from 1998 when I was built, so. I mean, that building can use the entire.
So, Steve,
all new carpet.
what about these items that you crossed out? What about like adding some of those back?
We
in?
could, I crossed those out just so I could put more money toward east side.
Yeah.
But I mean, so if we have a couple $1 million more of spending capability.
Yeah, I kind of took off some of the stuff with the bus garage too, because,
Yeah, but you
yeah,
said
that
the
roof's like leaks in
Yeah,
like 30
well-
places.
Maybe we should fix that.
Yeah, I was looking out for you guys before I was
Well, I understand, but I mean, if stuff's getting wrecked,
Yeah,
if the roof's leaking.
yeah, it needs to be resealed.
How much was that project?
Actually, I found a cheaper solution. I found a company that will come spray the seal on it and it'll last 15 years. And that's about 30,000, so the entire tear off and rebuild. So I'm gonna call around and, I talked to Chris about it, and Chris, he talked to your engineers and they actually said they recommended, so
Yep.
I wanted to make sure it was legit.
Yeah, we have other customers doing similar
Yeah.
things, yeah.
And we all agreed to add that back.
He just said he didn't want it.
Yeah, I do, yeah, I'm gonna add it, yeah.
That's the sealant.
He wants to
version.
seal it,
Well,
not the
whatever you
roof.
want, whatever.
Well,
Steve wants to
we
do.
checked, I had the engineers from Sidewalk to check on it.
How much were all these projects, when you crossed them all off, how much money did that?
That saved us, when I crossed all these projects out, that saved us close to $1 million.
What if we just add them all back in?
I mean, that
They're
would
all
make
on,
sense
they're
to
all
me.
on the critical
Yeah.
needs list, so you kind of just like went through and crossed off
Yeah,
critical needs.
I was trying to get
you know.
enough, because I thought we were gonna
That's-
stick around the 18, 19,
that's
so I
great.
wanted to make sure that we had enough.
I don't know, that's just my view, I mean, if you got, but I think if those are critical needs and we have the ability to get the money, it's like if we don't fix the roof, it's not gonna get better, it's going to get
Right.
worse. And then it's gonna cost us more when we wait 5 years to fix it, because it's gonna be more, so.
And I do like that on here because A, it does need to be done, but B, replacing the FS on those exterior of
Yes,
those
that needs to be
buildings
done.
is going to be a huge eye catcher to the community and to the students as well. I think
Yeah, that's why, there's a couple reasons why I put that. One, well, it's gonna save us money in energy costs, the buildings will be more energy efficient. Second, when people drive by, they're gonna see, wow, they're really doing some good stuff to the buildings. So right now, it looks like they belong in New Mexico or Arizona, the way they, it's color and the way it looks, so. There's actually, I did have Inverness on here for EFS replacement, so we could probably add Inverness to it too. Sorry, Phil, it's good about
What is that one?
Inverness.
adding
EFS replacement, that's the,
I like the
the ugly
I just wanna-
brown color goes around all the
That's
buildings.
this one.
That's chipping off on some of them.
I just
Yeah, if you
wanna
look at like
add it.
Petoskey, some of Petoskey's buildings in Boyne, they have that like aluminum stuff and it's cool colors, it looks really
That would be nice
trendy.
to get school color stuff there.
Yeah, we can-
Sure.
So if we add that at Inverness and uncross all of these other items, what are we looking at? 20.5? If we add that million back in, plus the we have 18.9. We add that million, we're at 19.9 plus this. 20.5
It'd probably be somewhere in that ballpark.
max.
I mean, you'd be getting close to the, because I think the bond, after all you have to pay all the fees, you end up with, as of right now, I mean, assuming interest rates stay where they are, though, they could potentially, they'll probably be lower by that time, if things can happen. You come up with like 20, qualified one, like 20.5, and then like ballpark 21.2, so you're pretty close to.
there was thing out here that I was kind of back and forth with, was remodeling the restroom, the student restroom.
Where?
Here at Inverness,
Oh.
the student restroom.
Was that when she was requesting to have like a shower here or something? Or no?
Yes. Plus that restroom it hasn't been touched
Can we-
since like 1960, when this
No.
building was,
We like the two toilets in the same stall.
yeah. Yeah, it's like
Right.
awful, it's like
Who uses
full metal
that?
jacket.
Well, I thought
Sharing,
Chris-
sharing is caring.
I thought Chris had requested a shower to be built out here as part of that.
You did, yeah. This because of some of the students.
Well, I understand why she requested it.
Should I add that to this list?
Yes. And also the restroom remodel, 'cause it really needs it.
Inverness bathroom remodel.
Do you wanna put tennis courts on there? I know Spencer
How much
working on a
is that?
potential project, that's not, that would be very much.
Tennis courts.
And like, we don't have, in Spencer's, where I know
We
working
could
on
just take
it.
them out and do
We can
nothing.
stop
Big,
it.
pavilion.
Or
We
if
could
we
also
end
just
up,
take them out and leave it there for,
well, if we end up doing something else, he's gotta do the pool.
I think so, no?
That maybe you do,
I think we needed it for parking. I think we talked about we needed to expand that.
that's would be if you like, that would be like if you.
We had in the cost, tennis court resurface was about 995,000, so just under
Tennis
a million.
court renovation.
That was a
I'll just
resurface?
call it renovation
It was
instead of
tennis court
resurface.
resurface, it says tennis court
I
resurface
don't wanna call
pickleball
it
conversion, which you would
I
have
think
to be
renovation
at,
would be
but
Renovation.
That was how much?
995 is what's in the workbook.
Amber, when you're done with that list, can you email us a copy?
I'm like writing stuff, yeah. So I
Give it to
have,
Spencer and he can send it to us.
I have, right now in front of me, I have Steve's list from Eastside. I have this non-negotiable list with all of the crossed out items,
Back on.
uncrossed. 2 buses per year on a 10-year plan, a tennis court renovation, the, how do you say it?
EFS?
EFS replacement, I love that, EFS replacement at Inverness, and then an Inverness bathroom remodel.
Yep, it's on there.
Is that our list?
And the carpet. Did you
Are
say?
we adding
middle
Carpet
carpet?
for the middle school.
Carpet at the middle school.
Classroom, library in every classroom.
It's like, wait,
Carpet, middle school carpet replacement, is that just the middle school or is that the whole building?
It would be the entire building minus the office area.
So middle school,
Yeah,
so
and
it's
like
carpet
the
replacement.
Do we have a fit on there for that?
If I don't do both.
I believe
No, I
so.
mean,
Okay,
that's-
okay.
Yeah, middle school, intermediate school, carpet replacement.
and that was 2 to 4 rooms per year on that carpet.
Is what the original plan was, that this would allow you
This
to do
would-
it all
yeah,
at
to do it all at
All
once.
at once.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, never mind.
So Matt, does that kind of complete or satisfy your thought process of the visual things that students?
I think some more, yeah, when there's things they can see. I mean, I think like the EFS thing is huge to me. Then the tennis court would be huge, because that's what we all see when we pull up there.
Even if we just pulled it out and did nothing, it would look better.
You have something, Mr. Sly?
I mean, something you could see, just something to consider, I don't know where you ended up with money-wise. I don't know if it was in one of the St. Logic's drawings or not, but we talked about, if possible, getting us some kind of coverage out front for kids to stand under when they're being picked up for CIS, CMS kids. Because we have kids standing out in the rain and sleet when they're getting.
The winter is pretty bad out there.
We did have that drawn
Yeah,
up.
that's in one of them.
I can't remember what it costs or not, but
Yeah.
just if it's possible.
I mean, it's something we could add on there that if it's, if we do it, I mean, I wouldn't have a problem. I get it, because all those kids come out there and there's no cover for them.
Yeah, the first day it was raining, kids were just standing out there.
No, I understand, they all walk, they walk out there, they gotta stand for
Yeah.
20 minutes sometimes.
Parents would appreciate seeing that.
Can we add that on too?
Steve's looking it up.
I was seeing if I could find it in here too.
I mean, it's kind of be something like, you know, what you'd see at a bus stop, right, where, is what you're thinking, like some kind of covered.
Like a slab maybe if possible, with, yeah, just like a
A bus stop.
But,
Or a gazebo. like-
gazebo type
Yeah.
thing, yeah, just like a tin roof, but a nice one, one obviously.
Throw some picnic tables underneath in
Yeah.
the summer.
Yeah.
All these. I'm waiting for Steve to tell me some language if he wants me to add that to the list or not. Because when I ask for a motion, I'm gonna say as recommended by the building and maintenance manager, Steve Fleming.
Yeah, I think we need to add a couple $100,000 to each building for furniture allowance. Because I'm looking at some of the, project of Site Logic, and that's some of the options they have is furniture allowance.
Yeah, usually when you renovate spaces,
Yeah.
you want to have a furniture
Yeah, you
allowance
have
in
to have
there.
new furniture, so.
It's hard to move old furniture in new spaces.
Furniture, what do I say, write that as for furniture?
Furniture allowance,
Now, most of those allowances are included in those FIMs though, too.
yeah, some of them, yes.
Yes, yes, so some of them will say there's this amount in there for furniture.
Each, I don't have to put prices.
No, you don't have to keep prices.
And then we'll get the.
So
I'm
not
just trying
to
to
keep-
projects, just
Not to
projects.
keep piling, but didn't we talk about, and I don't know if this is getting done separately or not, but building some kind of like a storage building at East for all their stuff to like store in there? I don't know, I thought we talked about it. Is that something that was part of this, right, Deanna?
It's been talked about, I don't know.
Is it,
if it's part of
would be
this.
something of benefit? I mean, I know we maybe can't do
Absolutely,
everything that you guys need done over there, but would that kind of help some stuff
Any
at least?
additional storage space would be extremely helpful.
Because I mean, a storage building relatively doesn't cost, I mean, I built a huge building behind my house for probably like $70,000. They don't cost that
Yeah,
much.
the CTE barn that Ryan is building is huge, and it's, I think total cost is $250.
I mean, my building's 30
And
by
that's
50
heated,
and it's,
controlled environment.
so is mine's heated 30 by 50, 25 feet high, and it probably cost me like
Did you do the
$78,000.
work yourself?
I did some of it myself, but I'm hiring, if I had hired somebody, it probably would have been maybe
And it'd probably be
100,000.
straight.
Well,
I see
maybe.
it, I saw it, it was big.
Well, what I don't know.
I have to go backwards and ask about the tin roof structure. Are we putting that on this list?
Yes.
Okay, what is that called?
That would be,
I don't wanna write that down. I need
it's
something
like
else.
it's a roof resurfacing.
No,
For the bus, for the-
waiting,
Oh, okay, I think
waiting,
the
the
bus
children
stop.
that are waiting
Bus stop, I'm
outside.
not sure what, I couldn't
I'm not
find
calling
it
it
in
a bus
the,
stop.
I couldn't find it in the
I
site.
do remember it was on one of the drawings, I can't remember what it was called though.
Yeah.
A good covered
Covered pickup,
Covered
covered pickup,
shelter,
covered
shelter,
sheltered pickup line.
shelter,
Parent pickup.
For the
shelter,
intermediate,
or- Yeah, parent pickup. I don't know.
We can have Rebecca, I mean, she created that programmatic film, so
Okay.
we can certainly have her get the amount for you, you know.
I don't need the amount, I need
Oh.
what it's called.
If you just say shelter at the intermediate for
Okay.
students, we will know exactly what you.
Shelter.
Outdoor canopy structure.
Outdoor,
There you go.
Yeah.
is that what it's
there you go.
called?
Oh, did you find it?
She did.
Perfect.
Outdoor
she's
canopy
here.
structure at intermediate school. All right, so I have Steve's complete list plus middle school, intermediate school carpet replacement, the bus plan, tennis court renovation, the whatever thing at East, and then, or Inverness, and then the Inverness bathroom remodel, a furniture allowance at each district building. We can put a number in here. That one probably does need a number.
It needs a number, but the nice thing about that in your PQ application
It
is,
doesn't need one there?
no, you have to have a number, they call it FF&E, but you can buy, that way you can just buy whatever you can afford, you know what I mean?
What number
need
did
to
you, what
spend-
number did you want for each building?
Yeah, it's not like I'm buying 30 desks and
100,000.
50 chairs and,
$100,000 furniture allowance per district building, a storage structure or building at East Elementary, and then an outdoor canopy structure at the intermediate school. Sounds good?
Our number just grew, I'm pretty sure.
It's fine.
But I think, I mean, listening to what Pete said, I think we were better off having a few extra things than not having enough to, if we don't get to every single thing, but, I mean, I think we're able to though.
but one of the things, keep in mind too, when you talk about furniture, is you have an allowance for furniture that's in the PQ app, and if you have leftover funds, you could buy additional, you know what I mean? Buy
Right,
additional
because it's
furniture, because it's part of your
I'm
scope.
really gonna write that.
You know.
Recommended.
Same thing with buses, I think what you can do is you have an allowance for buses that's in there, and if you have extra money, you can buy more buses. Because it's already part of that scope.
I guess I'd rather have a few more options too, to do things, but.
Hey, can I ask a question real quick? So if everything works out as planned, if we play this scenario out, we make it to the March 5th PQ meeting, right?
April 5th.
Or excuse me,
That'd be tomorrow.
Be tomorrow. It's not gonna be done, I'm telling you right now.
Then we go, that just gives us an opportunity to go to
And I'm just
vote in
gonna say
August.
it's
If
recommended by
approved
Steve.
by the community,
Yeah, ask them if they're recommended.
at what point in time will monies become
Here,
available
we don't
to
have to read
start
the
on
whole
some of
thing,
these
everyone's
projects?
gotta read it.
Well, like this scenario that RJ shared today, if you were to use the state qualified one, it says that August 24 vote, first bonds dated November 1st, 2024, meaning that would be the date of the bond sale. So you would have the funds in November of 24, once the sale of the bonds, for the first series. And he has the first series at 16.5 million.
Yeah.
Well, 15.6 construction ability. And then your second series would be June 30th of 2026. And that would be 5.8 million for construction.
Let's do this.
So you'd
And
have,
what is it, we have 3 years to spend?
you have 3 years
85%?
from the date of the sales to spend 85%. So if you, November of 24, you'd have till November of 27 to spend 85% of those funds. The other 15%, you can stretch as long as you need to. And then the same thing with the June 26, you'd have till June 29 to expend it, to expend 85% of it.
So this would allow us to plan for projects for the summer in '25? Or should it be
No,
26?
with the November 24 bond sale, I mean, you're gonna wanna get out to bid in the fall, the summer before you're gonna construct.
Right.
So it would give you, with a November bond sale, you'd get into design, obviously in early '25, get everything done, get out to bid in the fall of '25, early fall '25, summer '26 construction.
Well, there's probably some projects though that could get started that first year. I mean, Steve could.
Yes.
Yeah.
Steve
Yeah,
wanted
so
to get
he's
the
not gonna-
boilers.
Steve could buy a
done.
box.
You could buy some buses,
Right,
you
we
replace,
could do
yeah,
some-
anything that, yes,
Anything that we.
didn't
wanted to do.
require
Small stuff, yeah.
design.
I mean, so you
Yes.
can start.
Fire
Design
alarms,
and
stuff,
design.
yeah, yeah.
The asbestos stuff, you can start. you
Yes,
know,
yes,
stuff.
for sure.
The maintenance stuff he can start to work at, but the design stuff, it's gonna be another year before you're gonna.
Anything you're gonna do the competitive bidding for, yes, you wanna get.
And the problem is, if you're gonna do some major, if you're gonna do some things that might interfere with the school buildings or the
Yes.
flow of the school, it has to be done in the summer.
Yes, yes.
So I'd like to just ask one other question. Like previously in our last fund, we had a category for technology, which had to be paid back sooner than what our other art facility monies did. What does our technology look like for the district at this point?
That's a great question. Yeah. And I think we talked about this a little bit a while back, when I first started, but ESSER 3 money brought millions of dollars to the district. And we can bring Jordan in here at some point in time, but we have outfitted, from our technology director's perspective, met that agreement, right? So one of the biggest expenses that we followed through and finished in the fall were these here in every classroom. That was extremely expensive. But we did get that done. That was something that was started. It wasn't quite finished. And, you know, we're looking at, you know, we're in a cycle right now. Jordan and I have worked together to create a cycle where every year we have money set aside so that we are refurbishing, replacing Chromebooks. We want to maintain that mission of one-on-one Chromebooks for our students, but they're starting to break down. So what Jordan and I have been working on is a replacement plan, so that every year we have enough money set aside, so we'll do them by groups, right? But I think the idea is that no student will have a Chromebook for longer than I think 2 or 3 years before it's replaced with a new one, and we send them back to refurbishing. That's a big one. We are still talking about, I know there's some teacher requests for laptops. They would like to consider laptops, and/or one of the other things that I know we were talking with some of the principals about is, you know, right now the teachers have just desktops, which doesn't allow them to take a device home if they have work to do at home as easily, right? So if many of the replacement desktops that Jordan is doing right now, He's replacing them with dual screens and then also a Chromebook. So the Chromebook you can plug into your screens, but at the end of the day, if you got some work, some grading you want to do at home and you want to get it done, you can just unplug that Chromebook and take it home. So that's our next phase that we're going to start working with, and that shouldn't be too expensive, and we're going to do it in phases, so we're not going to pay for it all at one time. But other than that, I mean, I will have to say that technology-wise, I think we're pretty good, in a good place. Really happy with what Jordan is doing as a technology director. He's ahead of the curve. You know, he's always coming to me with suggestions, and I know he's really happy with where we're at right now.
So you don't feel it would be necessary to have like an allowance in here for technology?
I'd love to. I didn't say that. But.
Well, keep in mind,
Smart,
your sinking fund as well, and I don't know.
Yeah, we do have a sinking fund.
Sinking fund, if your language allowed for the purchase of technology with a sinking fund, that's a great way to purchase technology because it's cash on hand, no interest charges.
Know that of our current.
Yeah, but I mean, again, I think if you're going to go to a PQ meeting, asking more, you know, being prepared for maybe we have some money left over, and maybe we are finding that we would like to upgrade a computer lab or something like that.
Yeah, RJ will ask how much you're going to set aside for the purchase of technology in buses, because they said that's got to be paid back. That's amortized, whatever that word is. Amortized differently. Plus, because buses and technology don't have the lifespan of buildings.
Yeah.
So RJ has to figure that in.
Okay.
Where could you check and see if our sinking fund is worded correctly for technology?
Yeah, I was trying to do a quick search, I haven't
Okay.
found it yet, but do you remember when it was last voted, when it was last renewed, and when it's due to be renewed?
I don't.
Okay.
I'm not knowing.
I can find it.
Actually, I think that
somewhere.
was, wasn't that like 2 years ago? We had like that,
I think the sinking fund's due in '26, I thought.
Okay.
I could be wrong, but it's due.
because there was an election 2 years ago where we continued something. I think that was the sinking funds.
That was.
When Paul was here, when Paul was the superintendent.
Wasn't that the non-homestead? I thought the sinking fund was back in like 15 or 16. It's on.
Oh, it was a non-homestead, that's
It's on the
right.
L4, on the L,
Since I've been here.
whatever it is. 40, what the heck's it called? That's the form that the county treasurer has all of them, I don't, whatever, what is the 4090, L49?
L4029.
L4029.
Yeah. Yeah, it will tell you how much your
And it'll
levy.
say when it was levied,
When it was voted, when it expires, yes.
So that's on, should be on the county treasurer's website.
Yes. Yeah, and you have a copy of your L4029.
Steve, can you,
Sue
for
probably has it
transparency
too.
purposes, tell me definitively what all these crosswalk items are on your list?
Yes.
I can read most of them.
One of them was the high school new addition roof. Let me go pull up.
That must be the one I can't read, yeah.
Oh,
Here they are. Add panels to mezzanine, the handrails to be ADA compliant in the balcony of the high school gym.
Okay.
1998 additional roof replacement for the high school. Inverness Academy HVAC controls for miscellaneous equipment. Gym exterior water penetration study at East, but I'm kind of doing that now though, so.
So don't add that one
don't
back
add
on?
that, no.
Okay.
That's being done by a
Keep that
company
one
that's
crossed
looking
off.
into that as we speak. Another one was for the transportation building, there was roof replacement and also furnace replacement.
Furniture?
Furnace.
Furnace.
Steve, is the high school,
Thank you.
what you said, the high school mezzanine, is that like replacing where it's open there to more of like something that kids can't slide through?
Yes, it's
Okay.
an ADA compliant too, so yes.
Okay, I think that's probably needed there. We don't need kids dangling from there like they like to sit there and.
Railing, and basketball.
Yeah, that railing goes around.
Yeah, like they like,
kids
like your son likes to sit there and.
Put as many bars in there as you can.
Yeah, your sinking fund needs to be renewed in 2027. It was actually voted in May of 2016,
That's what I was close.
so.
That's like 15 or 26.
said a study.
It may not, because it was in 2016, it may not include technology in the bond language, because that was a law that was updated right around like
But you may have
2017.
the opportunity to renew it, to add it.
When you renew it, yes.
Is that something that we're adding to this?
No, no, I think my question was, is what was in Steve's thing, the high school, mezzanine thing was what I was asking about.
Do I need technology?
Oh, to add technology to this.
It's really the last question that we have. I think.
I mean, if Spencer says they have a whole lot of the
Yep.
general fund. I mean, I think you also have to consider too, right now, the schools making a good amount of money in interest revenue also that can cover some of those types of expenses as well as needed.
I'm okay either way, like with the plan that they have of refurbishing Chromebooks or, you know, if they ever had to switch over to another system, well, that would make it difficult from Chromebooks to something else and having, you know, some kids had this, some kids had that, till that cycle was complete. The VinQ boards would be another example of replacement of those or replacement or like going to a different system or something as technology develops. So whatever the overall wisdom is and guidance, I'm okay with including it in the bond, and if you feel there's a great plan outside of the bond, if sinking fund or general fund is going to cover it, I just wanna make sure that we cover it, that's what I'm looking
Oh,
for.
I understand.
Yeah.
But didn't he say that if we do add electronics or any kind of, it has to be bought within what two? What happens if we decide not to buy any electronics? Is that an issue then?
Yeah, I mean, that'd be a good question for RJ in terms of how much you would want to be setting aside and, you know, just so he can make sure that he does everything correctly with the bond. But you will have the opportunity to renew your sinking fund in 2027,
So we could do it then.
and you could add technology as language now with that, so that's only a couple years away.
I would be fine with that.
I think you're in good shape to handle any near-term issues that we have technology too.
How does everybody feel about this list? Steve, do you recommend this list?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that,
Yeah.
it's one of those lists where everybody might not get what they want on there, but everybody's getting something, so those are usually the best kind of deals when everybody feels like they could have gotten better, but they got something.
Would anybody prefer, anybody at all, prefer that when I ask for a motion, read this list in its entirety? Or is everybody comfortable with a broader motion?
Will we be getting it all inclusive, kind of neater than what we just
It'll
did
be
and be
written here,
able
it'll
to
be
see it?
published
I
at
think,
some
I
point,
think
it'll be
I
published.
think we need to publish it
It
on
will
the
be- it will be
website or
published.
some form so people can see.
Because we're gonna have that scope
Yep.
needed anyway, so.
I think that would be a Sue Ballard question, what she would
Do you
prefer
need me to
in a
read this
motion.
list in its entirety for the minutes? Or can we just maybe attach a list to the minutes?
We can do that.
We say like see exhibit A, and then attach.
Just
the list of
attach
everything.
a neat list?
Call Steve.
I think I have everything.
I'm
for
fine
that.
typing it up for you and emailing it to you too. I'll do that
That'd be
tonight.
fine.
And I guess my last question would be for Deanna, if I may put you on the spot, because your building has had the most conversations, I feel like, out of the district, and I know having the idea of a separate, not a separate wing, but an added wing, and then, you know, more just of a reduced version of that. How is your staff and how are you feeling as administrator of that building? Like, with this plan, would your needs be met?
No, I don't think our needs will be met if we consider that we really would like to have preschool included in our building one day. And when we talk about, like, for example, updating libraries, I don't have a library currently. That'll be a classroom, so no.
So with the, in entryway coming and then the remodeling of the existing office space and teacher lounge. Like they're thinking that's gonna give you around 4 new classrooms. What would those classrooms then, because you'd have a new second grade next year, but then you'd still have 3 other classrooms. So I guess that's what I'm looking at. I know originally when we were talking preschool and what came out of the MESD strategic plan was piloting a program, and then it quickly escalated to 4 segments of the program, so.
It
I
could
know that we
potentially
went-
probably end up maybe fitting 1 preschool in there. I would need a second study hall classroom. Because technically I should have 2. And then, I won't have a space for, well, I guess it depends on other things, like the MOCI classroom, if it's still being used or not, that would free up another room for me. So, and then if the stage project is done, that would free up a little more space, so.
The stage project is on here.
Yeah.
I would have to see it. just
Do you need to see
know.
the list? Do you wanna look at it?
She wants
This-
I could just see it in an email if you,
Well, the
Before-
stage is probably
do you
not
wanna
big
see it
enough to
before
make
we
a
vote on it?
library, would it?
I
Really
don't.
gotta be lowered.
Huh? I'm just thinking down the road. how many
Do you wanna see it before we make a
classrooms
motion?
in 3 years?
That's okay. I'm pretty sure.
And then with the new, the additional rooms that are going into that secure entry, would we be able to move all of your, like your Title I and stuff, would all be able to have their own room in there? Would that give you any classrooms right now? Because the secure entry is also gonna have all those additional resource rooms added to it as well.
I'm not sure how large those are, until
See what happens.
I see
Until
the
you see it
plan.
going.
Okay.
Yeah, it'd be great to meet with Rebecca
Yeah,
virtually
yeah,
and kind of
it's-
go through all of that.
It'd be hard to tell exactly the size of those rooms, what that would look like.
So your library right now that currently has your BAS worker and
Social
your
worker,
social
BAS worker,
like-
but that will be my second grade classroom next year. So then my BAS worker and my social worker will not have a place next year.
But that's what you're referring to.
Would be,
with
yeah,
the
I
resource
thought the
room.
idea was that those rooms would be large enough, for those workers. And then you could use those
I'm sure they would be large
3 or
enough
4 extra classrooms for, ideally you could move kindergarten back, all of your kindergarten classes. I know that they're kind of separated right now, are they not? You have
I
one
have
that's not.
one, yeah.
You could
it's
move
on-
that in there and then, I don't know what your needs are, but.
I was trying to see if your library would still, like with those 4 classrooms, I know one would be second grade, however that looks like and actually where they're placed, but those 4 extra classrooms, you have the room that you're looking at expanding to second grade next year, a preschool, and then you'd have 2 empty rooms right now. If your BAS and your social worker went into the resource rooms. So could one of those be your library, or you would find use for those rooms? I guess that's what I'm trying to just mentally.
I guess when you're saying resource rooms, I'm just not sure what size a resource room is. I don't know exactly what that looks like.
Okay. And that makes some sense.
Because right now, like, my speech therapist is in a room the size of a closet. I mean, you know, if it's that size, or,
Bigger.
I would be that.
I would hope not, but. Dimensions, I would need to see dimensions in that. I'm not sure what that would fit.
Just know that they're bursting at the seams and they need the space, so that's what I'm looking at. But I also know that like we can't build a whole day off there, so.
I mean, whatever you build, it's not gonna solve our problem next year, like, you know what I mean, like, you're looking 2 years before we can even do anything with what she has right now for at least the next few years. And then after that, are there still gonna be as many kids, or will it come back down some? I mean, if that enrollment study we have is close to accurate, it says it's gonna come back down, but obviously none of us can predict the future.
Questions? Carmella, do you have any more questions? No. Mary Ann?
I don't have any more questions.
Matt? Right. I'm not trying to pressure anybody, but looking for a motion to approve the project scope for the pre-qualification meeting as outlined in the facilities list recommended by Steve Fleming.
I'll make that motion.
Or
All right, moved by Matt, supported by Carmella. Is there any more discussion? Mrs. Dollar?
Carmella Boyd,
yes.
Mary Ann Riding,
Yes.
Matt Malarchuk,
Yes.
Amber Hanson.
Yes. Okay. We need to go back now to the, if I can find the rest of my agenda. This is right here, I got it. To the SiteLogic PSA. We don't have something in front of us to approve. So the discussion right now is really whether we are going to table it or not approve it. Those are our options. Are there any questions or discussion?
I have a question. So Pete, with the approval of the scope, you guys can move forward with that piece, couldn't you? Or are you still looking for?
Well, I mean, we, obviously when we get that scope, you know, all typed up or, you know, and share it with us, we could start putting numbers and everything to
Start
it.
preparing for the.
We could
P2.
start preparing. Obviously from, you know, our leadership is pretty clear that in order for us to put more resource and time into it, we need to make sure that the district wants to work with us.
And you still have a couple weeks before you would really need to, a week or two, before you would need to start that, since we're done with our part?
Yeah, I mean, the sooner the district can make a decision on the PSA, the better it's gonna be for us from a resource perspective.
Okay.
It's hard to allocate time and
Our
resources.
next board meeting is March 18th, correct? Would that be the next opportunity to?
That's our next regular meeting,
Right.
yes.
Unless we call it a special board meeting.
What's today, the 4th?
Today's the 4th, so that's.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend waiting 2 more weeks. I think that's
I
gonna
mean,
put
we
us
could
behind the eight ball
we could
again.
call a special board meeting with the idea of that would be the only business. It would only take hopefully a few minutes and.
Yeah.
And Kurt, we just talked to our attorney, they're pretty darn close to having, agreed upon language that we can send to you guys probably as soon as tomorrow.
We could, but I feel like they said they were pretty darn close last week when we had our meeting as well, so.
Did they?
Yeah,
Okay.
a couple days, we were a couple days out last time, so.
Okay.
We will push our side
I don't,
to get,
I don't know, I'm not
to get
saying it's
a
you, I'm just
document
I think it's
in your
Dan's fault.
hands.
I
It's
need
your
something in
attorney's
front of
fault.
me to,
The sooner we can get an actual document in your hands, obviously, the sooner
Right.
then you can begin your review. And I guess I would ask, is there any other questions about, you know, outside of what the attorneys are working on that, while we're here to?
I think that's hard for us to answer
I
because we
know.
don't know what they're working on.
No, I,
we got a pretty vague answer on
Yeah.
what changes were made
yeah.
to the agreement.
Yeah, I mean, from what you heard, Dan and Kurt are, they think they can have an agreement really quickly. They're that close.
Are there questions? If there's not questions, I'm just gonna ask for a motion in regards to the SiteLogic PSA. And then anybody can fill that blank in.
Are we willing to do another special board meeting before the 18th?
I'm gonna be out of town next week.
I'm hesitant to even schedule anything. I don't know when Tim comes back. I feel like Julie's
Tim's
out
back.
next week.
I think Tim's back tomorrow.
See, I thought he left.
Thought he said he'd be
Today.
back like March, oh, I thought he'd be coming back March 5th.
I'm not sure when Julie gets back either, or what Dennis's availability is next week. And then we're gonna need at least 4 board members.
I'll be back on Friday, and I'll be gone Monday through Friday morning. Monday evening, I mean, if you did it early on Monday, I could come, like if you did it like in the afternoon, but
I could not do it during the day, so that would
well, my flight leaves
put
at
us right
6.
where we're at. So maybe we pull availability and see. I'd also like to see, how much notice do you need, Sue?
Or 18 hours.
I'd also like to see if we get a PSA, to look at before we even worry about whether or not anybody's available next week.
Our push will be to get that in your hands in the next week. That'll be our push
I
So-
started to get it to us by when,
in the next couple days.
Next couple days.
because then we had to have opportunity to
To review
review it
it.
and submit questions and for there to be any.
Yeah.
Let's, I'll ask for a motion and then we can have discussion about that special meeting before we adjourn. How's that sound? I'm looking for a motion in regards to the professional services agreement from SiteLogic.
I'd like to make a motion to table the professional service agreement on SiteLogic.
Moved by Marion, supported by Carmella. Any questions or discussion? Mrs. Beller?
Matt Malarchuk,
Yes.
Mary Ann Robbins,
Yes.
Carmella Boyd,
Yes.
Amber Hanson.
Yes. Before we adjourn, I'll pull board availability for next week. If we don't have enough board availability for next week, then we'll have to do a definitive motion on the 18th. I won't be there, so you'll just have to be firm in a vote for the 18th. We need to make a decision, we make a choice. Okay. Are there any other discussion points? Okay. I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
Make that motion to adjourn.
Support by Camilla, supported by Mary Ann. All in favor?
Aye.
It's 8:30 PM, right?